Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important and honestly, one of the most overlooked figures in Jewish history, Rabbeinu Hananel. Think of him as a true architect of the Talmud, a man who built an absolutely crucial bridge between two great eras of scholarship. And as you're about to see, his work pretty much changed everything.
But to really get his genius, we first have to understand the huge mystery he helps us solve. So picture this. It's around the year 1000, and the center of the Jewish world is going through this seismic shift. For centuries, everything revolved around the academies in Babylon. But then, all of a sudden, that center starts to move. New hubs of learning pop up across North Africa and Spain. So the question is, how does that happen? How does an entire world of knowledge just cross the sea?
Well, for hundreds of years, the answer was this incredible, thrilling story, the legend of the four captives. The legend says that four of the world's greatest sages, including a man named Rabbi Hushiel, set sail from Italy. But they're captured by pirates, and then, one by one, they're ransomed in different cities across the Mediterranean. And get this, wherever one of these scholars landed, a brand new center of Torah scholarship just blossomed. It's like genius itself was literally transplanted across the sea. Now, it's a powerful story, right? But history, well, it's usually a little more complicated. Thanks to the Cairo Geneza, this unbelievable treasure trove of medieval Jewish texts, we now think it was probably a more gradual migration. The evidence actually suggests that Rabbi Hushiel, who was Rabbeinu Hananel's father, probably got to Kairouan as a free man, not as a captive. So the legend might be more symbolic than literal, a way of explaining a massive historical shift. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll dive into that legend, then look at the huge challenge these new centers were facing. We'll meet the sage of Kairouan who stepped up to the plate, explore his revolutionary new commentary, look at the debate about his legacy, and finally, see how he laid the foundation for, well, pretty much everyone who came after. So let's start with the problem. It's a big one. These new scholars, they had the Talmud. But the Talmud is, well, it's an ocean. And that's not an exaggeration. Look, there's no question the Talmud is the absolute backbone of Jewish law. But it wasn't written to be some user-friendly, organized reference book. Not at all. It's a massive record of debates, arguments, side stories, and tangents. Trying to find a straight answer in there can be really, really tough. So the number one question for this whole new generation was this. How do you take this vast, sprawling ocean of debate and pull out clear, practical guidance from it? How do you make it work for communities living hundreds of miles from the old centers in Babylon? That was the challenge of the hour. And the man who stepped up with the answer was Rabbeinu Hananel ben Hushiel, the sage of Kairouan. So who was this guy? Rabbeinu Hananel lived right at this incredible turning point in the 11th century. He was the son of that very same Rabbi Hushiel from the legend. He was an Italian living in Kairouan, Tunisia, which at the time was a major center of trade and scholarship. Eventually, Rabbeinu Hananel becomes the head of the great yeshiva there, putting him in the perfect position to tackle his generation's greatest challenge. And his solution was nothing short of revolutionary. He basically invented an entirely new way of commenting on the Talmud. To really appreciate what he did, just think about a commentary you're probably more familiar with, like Rashi's. Rashi is this brilliant phrase-by-phrase guide, right? He helps you understand the text word for word. Rabbeinu Hananel did something completely different. He zoomed out. He gave you the bird's-eye view, a high-level, clarified summary of the entire discussion. His method was a total game-changer. He was the first person to create a systematic commentary that just cuts through all the noise. He would identify the main arguments, he would skip the tangents, and then, and this is the key, he would state a clear, final, practical legal decision. He wasn't just a guide, he was an architect, drawing up the first ever blueprint for the Talmud's legal structure. And you can just feel his confidence. He had this signature phrase. After summarizing the core logic of a super complex section, he would often just write, Vashar kol hashmoa pashutahi, which means, and the rest of the discussion is simple. It's like he was handing you the keys to the kingdom and saying, all right, you can take it from here. It shows an incredible level of clarity and mastery. Now, when you come up with an approach that's so new and so authoritative, it's bound to spark a debate. And it did. To this day, scholars argue about it. Was he simply a brilliant transmitter of tradition, or was he a radical innovator? So there are really two camps. The traditional view is that his work is divrei Kabbalah, words of tradition. They believed he was just faithfully recording what the Babylonian Geonim had already decided. But modern analysis shows something else. It reveals Atzma Uchmelaya, complete independence. It shows that while he totally respected tradition, he very often forged his own path and came to his own conclusions.
So which one was it? The truth is, he was both. And that's what makes him a true master. He could synthesize the past perfectly while also being a bold, independent thinker, charting a whole new course. That unique combination, that's the heart of his genius.
And his impact wasn't just in his own books. It was like a ripple effect. It echoed powerfully through his students, who went on to build directly on the foundation that he laid.
And his most famous student? None other than Rabbi Isaac Alfasi, the Rif. We're talking about one of the 3 pillars of Jewish law. The Rif's work would become one of the most important legal codes in all of Jewish history.
So you can see this amazing chain of transmission. It starts with the Talmud, that vast ocean. Then Rabbeinu Charnanel comes along and creates the first blueprint. His student, the Rif, takes that blueprint and builds a foundational legal code. And that code, it goes on to influence Maimonides and basically all of Jewish law that follows.
So when you boil it all down, what did he do? He solved the Talmud's accessibility problem. He created the very first systematic summary commentary. He was the essential bridge between the Geonim in Babylon and the Rishonim in Europe. And he didn't just build that bridge. He trained the master architects who would build on it for the next 1,000 years.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. Every great structure needs a blueprint, and Rabbeinu Chananel wrote the first one for the Talmud. So you have to wonder, without his foundational summary, could the grand story of Jewish law as we know it have ever been written at all? It's a powerful testament to the quiet, brilliant architect from Kairouan.